now your hosts for KLEAN Radio, Andrew and Judah.
Welcome to KLEAN Radio. Hey Judah, how's your week?
My week is my week.
That's the most non-answer answer I've heard.
Well, it sounds profound if it doesn't make sense.
I guess so.
That's what I've learned about profoundness.
Oh.
Ask a question with a question, have a statement with a statement, which none of this makes sense in what I'm saying.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly, but people don't really care to think too long, so they're like, oh. Okay. They don't question it, except you.
So what's been the big talk in addiction and recovery this week?
It's actually a lot of talk in addiction and recovery this week.
Yeah.
There's
We've had the fallout of the Amy Winehouse stuff.
Which, again, I don't think has been as crazy as it would have been a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, it's weird. There's sort of this ambivalence about, I think in particular Amy Winehouse, that people, we expected it. But I think also people wanted her to be that way. You
Right.
know? I mean, her whole rehab, no.
Right.
You know, people enjoyed sort of that rebelliousness of her. So it's kind of strange that, people, I guess maybe people feel a little guilty, maybe, I don't know, or just don't want to have to think about it.
Well, it's. I think that's the biggest thing. What it is, people don't want to think about it because they're, what do you call it in it? They're what's the word? Implicit. They're
complicit.
Complicit. Thank you. Thank you, college graduate. A few times over.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, it is sad. It's very sad. It's but again, it's just the cliche. It's another 27-year-old.
Death in the music industry.
Dead rock star.
Well, they had an article in The Guardian, and the title of it's Behind the Music, Do Record Labels Have a Duty to Care? Which was a really interesting article.
Do they? You mean?
Yeah, the article's about, whether or not music labels and producers and management of recording artists, should they intervene? Should there be a zero drug policy or some sort of, intervention like level? I mean, if you have your artists out on the air, going out on public appearances on TV, caught on YouTube, smoking crack, I mean, at what point is there a duty of the employer, so to speak? Although technically, I guess the record labels don't employ the artists.
Well, because they're independent contractors.
Right, which was another tax and monetary loophole.
Right. But it goes to all these industries. Most industries do have moral clauses. Mm-hmm. But as far as this, as long as you're bringing in the dollars.
Right. Well, Charlie Sheen had a moral clause, right?
Right.
But they ignored it and ignored.
And they didn't fire him because of his morals clause. I mean, they fired him because he went.
Well, because he became uncontrollable.
Right, because he went crazy. But the second they lost control was when it had nothing to, they would have kept on riding him.
Yeah, it was nothing about his health.
Right, they weren't concerned with his health. It was once it started to affect them at their own level. And should they have it's a hard thing to decide because in the end of the day, musicians, it's any field where the creative field tends to lend itself to addiction.
Well, and it's encouraged in the arts, especially music.
Right.
I mean, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Right.
I mean, it's right in there, And
acting, stage, you go to the English stage, with all those crazy, with the Peter O'Toole's and the Richard Harrises and all those guys.
And we've seen comedy. Just overrun with drugs and alcohol.
So I don't know. It's a good question. But again, it's like you have so many reality shows out there right now that are just train wrecks. It's like America is watching a train wreck. Jersey Shore, how much booze did they give these guys?
Right.
How much,
And that's legal.
Right.
I mean, and the other thing that's weird is that, and I'm for legalization of drugs, but you have to look at this and say, hey, you know what? Amy Winehouse is, and even Charlie Sheen, admitting on national TV that they're committing felony acts of drug use, possession and and there's just no consequences. It's like, yeah, I guess.
Well, there is a consequence.
Well, to them, personally, but not even to. There's like no public consequence to people. I mean, like saying, "Oh, yeah, I used 7 grams of coke," and
and when they're, politically speaking, it's funny every time some of these groups, the Christian the Christian family groups come out and say, oh, this isn't right. What they're like looked upon as by the rest of the people going, oh, would you shut up? Stop going back to the Middle Ages. And people do try to fight this stuff.
Right. Well, here's what they want to do. This former head of Island Records, Mark Merritt, announced that he wanted the following new guidelines imposed on artists, basically stating that artists whose health is damaged by substance abuse or self-harm, rendering them unable to perform, could face suspension from the label.
And what does that do? It doesn't matter anymore because touring is.
Well, he spoke about having halted the recordings of one of his artist albums after realizing she was suffering from anorexia and making sure she got professional help.
Oh, he's a kind soul.
Right?
But I mean, look at Michael Jackson last year. I mean, look at that. I mean, how many people are culpable with that stuff? I mean,
yeah, I mean, he was going for a long time.
I mean, they hired a doctor to give him.
He wrote a love song about Demerol,
right?
Which just blows me away. You
right.
know?
I mean, and I mean, there was no way he was ever going to complete that concert series. There was no way.
Yeah.
But they gave him $250 million, whatever crazy. I mean, in the end of the day, it's like a horse. You put a horse on the track until the horse becomes glue. And that's all these entertainers are eventual glue. I mean, Johnny Rhys Meyers, right? Mm-hmm. You know, who's a few weeks ago with it was reported that he tried to kill himself. He's been in and out of treatment centers. At what point does a studio say, hey, we're not going to give you work?
Right. Obviously, it seems to be when they think it's not going to make them any money.
Right. Which is almost never.
Right.
But it has. I mean, listen, there are obviously, casualties of all this stuff. If you look at the early 80s, you had the Mickey Rourkes of the world, you had the Treat Williams, you had the, I don't want to say Treat Williams, but, Eric Roberts, you had all these people that their careers were derailed by this.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems endless almost. And it's not just within entertainment, it's everything, but obviously that's the most visible.
Well, I mean, if you're the head of an insurance company and you get caught smoking crack, the odds are they're going to get rid of you.
Right.
Right. Most industries, if you're
probably before you get caught.
Right. It's CIA or any of these, most businesses, it's the entertainment industry that is so, because I don't know what it is. It's like give people more chance, and I'm all for chances.
I think it's part of that duality of
right.
that there is some glamour associated with drug use and alcohol use.
Right.
And part of the fantasy is that idea of complete freedom, that you can be artistically free and you can be free to use and drink and do whatever drugs you want, and that's part of making it.
Right. Have you ever seen Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll?
No.
It's Eric Bogosian, who's who wrote a bunch of movies. Wrote Suburbia, wrote Talk, was in Talk Radio, the Star Talk Radio, and he's got a great scene in it. And it's with he's imitating Keith. He's supposedly, I guess, it's Keith Richards. And one of the scenes is he's like, "Kids don't do drugs. They're horrible for you." And then he goes into this whole thing of like, some of the best music I ever wrote was on drugs. The greatest time in my life was on drugs. Kids don't use drugs.
Right.
And it's really funny. If anybody gets a chance to watch Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, it's great because it's an amazing parody on that type of stuff. One of my favorite people to listen to is like Eric Clapton, because he's had he's had an amazing career since, and he's managed to build an amazing life.
One of the things we were talking about earlier today at our little barbecue we were having, which was actually kind of fun. But we were talking about how people sort of don't really know. Like we're accustomed to dealing with people who have addictions,
right.
A late stage addiction where people are blacking out and waking up a week later, don't know where they are, don't know how they got there. But an average listener that's listening to the show probably doesn't think about drug use and alcohol abuse the same way we do.
No.
Right.
And they also don't look at treatment the same way we do. Because we live in LA, not just because of what we do, but because we live in LA, or I'm from New York and we've been around, we think everybody thinks or knows the same things as us. It's the common mistake that are constantly being made, and most people don't know what treatment is. Most people don't know what an AA meeting is.
Right.
Most, it's like, because if you've watched one of
even people in AA don't know
what an AA meeting is, right?
AA and treatment,
right?
I think they're the same thing,
right?
Right.
And it's like people's foray into what AA is watching When a Man Loves a Woman. Right. I mean, that's like, or watching 28 Days, or watching that.
Or just hearing that Amy Winehouse went to rehab, or Charlie Sheen went to rehab, and obviously that's for rich people, and it doesn't work.
And Lindsay Lohan.
It's a big excuse to get out of.
It's a spa.
It's a spa.
You could do whatever you want there, as long as you. And that's not what treatment is.
Right. It's your get out of jail free card or something.
And it's like it's like you get into trouble. Oh, I'm going to rehab. I'm going to sex rehab. I'm going to That's because.
Well, in some ways, it has made a mockery of itself.
Yeah, which is what we go back to with anonymity.
Right.
This is why anonymity in some levels is important, is because when you break your anonymity, you become the child, the
actual representation.
The representation of that type of thing.
Right.
And one of my favorite stories, and I was watching this a few years ago, is Andy Dick. When he did Andy Dick was on News Radio, and James Caan had done a cameo on the show, and this was when James Caan was sober and going to,
Right, after his long, for those that don't know, he had a real problem with cocaine.
Real problem, and he supposedly got sober at the Playboy Mansion
right.
in the grotto.
Switched to sex addiction, I guess.
But right, so I guess when he was on the show, he kept on saying to Andy Dick, hey, maybe you should go to a meeting with me. Right. So they did the show. They're on Howard Stern. This is actually on Howard Stern, and he's on Howard Stern, and James Caan's there, and Chuck Zito. And Andy Dick's like, can I tell the story, James? Can I tell the story? And you could see James Caan just staring at him with the stare of death. Like Chuck Zito going, hey, Jimmy, you want me to...
What, did Andy not see The Godfather?
Yeah, he didn't see any of it. He didn't even see Brian's song, probably would have helped. And so he... So he's like, okay, you could say the story. He's like, oh, James Caan was on the show and he asked me if I wanted to go, but Andy Dick becomes the poster child, and that's the problem a lot of times with the celebrity rehab stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't, some people might say it helps people, but there is also that this isn't what rehab is.
Right.
And I think that's an important thing to tell people.
Yeah, the idea that people think celebrity rehab is what a rehab's like just blows me away.
And most people do.
It's just scary.
1 million people believe that Jon Stewart is telling the news.
Right.
Okay. I mean, and that's not just a made-up statistic. That is people.
I have heard that most people in their 20s actually get their current events from The Daily Show.
From The Daily Show,
yeah.
Right? That's right. Whatever it is,
funny.
Right? That is. I mean, most people in America think the JFK assassination. If you could trust Oliver Stone on the movie JFK, that's actually really what happened.
There's another man that's never done any cocaine.
Right. Yeah. And so I think it is important to get out there the proper message. And it's not just some of the messages. I don't care if it's I had a lot of respect for a friend of mine named Bobby, who was called last week. They asked him one of the news shows, because Bobby used to be an A&R guy, and he goes, one of the news programs wanted to know about Amy Winehouse, and he said, I have no opinion on it. Right. And I just thought, wow, it's such a cool answer, because he could have gotten on the news and been hey, this is, and it's not right.
Well, there's all these talking heads, and I suppose to some degree we are talking heads here on the radio.
But we're talking heads that say we don't know.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that always shocks me. You watch CNN, and there's, your latest, whatever, Dr. Phil of the moment.
Yeah.
And, they're there saying their opinions about someone who they've never met, they don't know, acting like they really understand this problem. And it's bizarre. It's just
it's wrong.
Well, it's just strange. They don't start by saying. You'd think that everybody would come out and the first thing they'd say, I've never known this woman. I've never met her. Here's my ideas about what I know about addiction, but I've never met her, so I don't know. But you see all these people get on TV one after another. Oh, this and that. And she's got this problem. It's just,
and that's where people get their information. It's really amazing. I mean, just a perfect example. A few weeks ago was
form their real beliefs about addiction.
Was Casey Anthony?
Right.
Take Casey Anthony. Everybody in America is shocked at the verdict, right?
Right.
Because we're all listening to these talking heads that aren't in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Right. So we're getting all our information from this nit, Nancy Grace and all these talking heads, and so all of a sudden she's found innocent, and everybody's shocked.
Right.
But none of us were in the courtroom.
Yeah, and what we saw on the TV was not what was
right.
presented
It was
in
just
court.
right. It was just these talking heads talking.
That other wouldn't see.
It was lawyers without work talking on TV. And it's the same thing with addiction. You have people talking about people that aren't involved in the situation.
Well, and it's a strange thing being in treatment. I mean, I've treated my fair share of very famous people, and what's interesting is that I pride myself in not letting that information get out. And but it's amazing to me what I read, in TMZ, about people that I've treated, and it's all disinformation.
Yeah.
And it's wrong, but I can't say anything about it, and most of the clients that I have don't want anything said about it. So, the real stories are held through confidentiality. So it's hard to get accurate information out there to the public about what's really going on. So instead of somebody who was maybe really working with Amy Winehouse and talking about what maybe she was really going through, I mean, who knows what was wrong with her? I'm sure it was a multitude of issues. I'm sure it wasn't just they're saying now that she was trying to quit drinking,
Right.
and she quit too quickly, which is actually a way to die. So, but obviously there's a bunch of different things. But here's that situation where you can't really get the right information. The people that really know are not going to be able to talk about
care.
it, and then care, right? Are not going to be out there
Right.
talking about it. And of course, we can't interview her, so,
Right. Or most people that die.
Yeah, well, and even the ones that survive, I find, like, the Tatum O'Neal, this latest, show that she's got, how much, a lot of it's sort of revisionist history, you got to think. Everybody's sort of blinded by, what the fantasy of what they want to have happen instead of, it seems to me for someone to have a good perspective even on their own life, it takes like a good 20 years of reflection.
And it takes a good long time of sobriety.
Right.
Right.
Well,
Right. Sobriety is the great reflector.
Yeah.
Now I'm able to look at things even at like almost on 13 years sober. The story that I tell at 13 at 3 is very different. My perspective on growing up.
What do you think's changed for you between those 10 years?
Growing up.
Yeah, just development.
Growing up, looking at my own part.
Right.
It takes a long time. It's a very, very valuable step in the 12 steps, the 4-step. It's a very valuable step. But one of the things I always say to people is there are, it changes. It changes through the years, the way it's like we were talking about this last week. Our families, whatever we went through or happened, comparatively to the families we've seen, we're tremendously blessed.
Yeah.
So I was able to look at things like that and say, oh, wow. And I think that's important. I think that's the biggest thing that's changed is you grow up.
So let's go out for our first break.
Yes.
But why don't you
here.
tell people the number? And
The number here is 877-8830-830. That's 877-8830-830. You can find us at KLEANradio.com. That's Klean with a K. Or at Facebook.com at KLEAN Radio. And we'll be back in a second with Jeremy Stanton. And you're listening to KLEAN Radio.
Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs? Call KLEAN Treatment Center at 888-601-6040 for a free drug test and consultation. A treatment advisor is available to help you administer the test and answer any questions you may have regarding treatment and more. We are here to help. Call us today at 888-601-6040 or find us online at cleantreatmentcenter.com for your free drug test and the start of a promising future.
KLEAN Radio on Angels Radio AM 830 is presented by KLEAN Residential Treatment Center, a dynamic and professional addiction treatment facility.
Now it's back to Andrew and Judah.
Professionalism at its best at KLEAN Radio.
oh, we've got a new guest.
Yeah, we do. With a great shirt.
Thank you.
Loving that shirt.
I love it. Like, Mike's going hot. Let's just say whatever we want. So go ahead, Judah. Introduce our new guest.
Our guest tonight is Jeremy Stanton. I've actually known him for quite a while. He runs one of the cleanest, and I mean clean, I mean honest, sober livings in the Los Angeles area called Haven House. And it's funny because I said to somebody a few weeks ago, one of the guys from our place was looking for a sober living, and I'm not affiliated with Jeremy at all. And he had looked at a sober living, and he was like, he came back to the rehab. I was there, and he was like, I looked at his face, and he's like, oh my God, like, where am I going? And he's like, Judah, was expensive. He's like, it was like $5,000. I was like, and I didn't know what place. I don't know the name of the place. And I go, listen, the place called Haven House. This guy Jeremy's great. I don't know what the lavishness of it. I just know you're going to get a good place. And that's where he went. I don't know who it is. I don't want to say his name. But
you better not.
I better not, yeah. HIPAA and hungry HIPAA laws. And but so yeah, welcome in Jeremy Stanton.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's good to have you here.
So let's talk about what a sober living is, okay? Because I was in a halfway house in Arizona. Halfway houses are very different than sober livings.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because the terminology is actually quite different. I mean, I think most people understand the generic term sober living. It's just my personal opinion, and sort of why I started Haven House is because traditional sober living doesn't really offer the level of really support and supervision to really have a successful outcome. I always have a great saying that the lunatics can't run the asylum. And traditional sober living is very internally run democratically from the residents themselves.
Right.
I just found that that's kind of insane because, as you were talking about earlier, about the emotional development and the need for growth, how does that really happen unless you have a role model, almost like a parent-like figure and a teacher, to really show you what that looks like? So I just found that my experience with sober living was a huge impact and a catalyst for my recovery. And I kind of looked around and said, you know what, it doesn't really have to be like this. I was highly motivated, but I looked at most of the people in my house and about 80% of them blew out of there. Just because the reality is the ongoing level of support and understanding of really the development of early recovery was really just sort of lacking in the traditional sober living model.
You know, sober livings have been getting so much attention lately in the news. I mean, we had this whole thing in Newport. LA County tried to ban sober livings. There's been this movement to sort of get rid of them. Why do you think that is? What have you seen in the marketplace?
Exactly what I just said. Is I know what happened down in Newport is you had, and I'm not going to disclose the name of the facility, but they basically had all these beachfront properties, really unsupervised, with people causing disturbances in the neighborhood, and you're talking expensive real estate. And the neighbors just had it. They said, listen, this is unmonitored, unsupervised. You know, this should be regulated and licensed. And literally, they got a band of lawyers together to take them to court. And really, their objective, and they're still actually on this path, is to overturn federal fair housing laws. You know, addiction is recognized as a disease. So we're protected by disability laws and federal fair housing laws. Their goal is to actually overturn federal law. So it's funny, I'm a member of what's called the Sober Living Coalition, and we are a self-regulating...
Actually, member as well.
Yeah.
You're not just members, but you're also...
And it's funny that you should mention that because, you know, we are supposed to be anonymous as alcoholics, but I actually did talk to Jeff Christensen, the head of the Sober Living Coalition, said, you know what? You can only get slapped so many times, and so much the public the public stereotype of what an addict is just beaten in people's consciousness.
Or what a good sober
much.
living is. Like I'm a board member of the nonprofit Friendly House, which is a sober living for women. It's been around for 60 years, and they run a social model as well as running just a house. It's not just a place where people that are stepping down from residential treatment go into a sober living and they're kind of left to do what they are supposed to be doing, going to meetings or whatever and having lunch together, dinner together. There's actually some sort of structured organization within the house.
Exactly.
So it sounds like very much like that's where you got to.
We're exactly a social model as well.
So how did you get started in all that?
Well, I actually, my background originally was actually entertainment. And after working about 13 years in entertainment, and I actually worked in nightclub promotions for about 10 years as well, got sober and realized, got sober and was just on a different path. And you know what? I started to really despise the people that I was working with and said, you know what? There's got to be something different for me. And I fell in love with the recovery, was sponsoring a lot of guys, said, you know, how do I turn something I love into something I do?
Right.
And that's really was the birth of it. And then I sort of looked around, realized that there really is a need, the disparity for quality treatment to go to traditional sober living, the disparity of client care in between is such a disparity that I'm like, this is what needs to happen. And that's really how it started.
It's interesting because, I came into this field, actually, I got a master's in social work a couple years after college. Actually, I was right out of college. And then, I worked in chronic acute care psychiatric facilities for years. And then I got into working in the sobriety and recovery field. So for me, it's been this path of evolution of looking at from a medical model and then looking at a social model. And now I really look at things largely from a public health model. And I've seen a lot of people come into this recovery industry that are coming out of recovery that really don't understand the business of healthcare.
Well, they think, and this is a problem I've had for years. I had one of the greatest therapists in New York, and who I consider, I always hope people think their therapist is the best. But she, ran a major drug treatment center called Arms Acres, which is a huge rehab in New York, and she's an amazing woman, and she's not sober. And she helped me. Oh my God. Yeah. And there's this thought in AA or in many that the only way alcoholics could help, only alcoholics can help other alcoholics. And that's a very dangerous thought because that only means that the only help we're going to get is, it's like, so if you're a sober living, oh my God, how dare you instill virtue, And I
guess I'm saying this because I'm impressed. I'm impressed by the fact that you've come to what I would call a highly evolved view of how to help people in an industry that is largely like some of the people complain, unregulated and lacks some professionalism, like risk management and, you know, other things that are sort of standard in the treatment industry, but aren't present in a lot of levels of care within recovery and addiction.
Yeah, it's to me, it's almost insane. I mean, you have this heavy investment on the front end for, you know, in treatment centers, which gives you really 30 days, some understanding of your disease, and hopefully some clarity. But most importantly, hopefully it breaks down the resistance to understanding that you need ongoing support. And I don't think enough is
handles
stressed.
detox well, and it also gets medication stabilized.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
But he's saying, all right, he's right. He's like, it's basically like saying, I'm buying a really nice car. I'm going to buy a BMW.
And I'm never going to take it for a service.
And when I take it for a service, I'm going to
going to the car wash.
I'm going to go to Ramon's around the corner, you know, because they gave a good deal.
Right.
And it's amazing how people think. It's not just this isn't just a sober thing.
Isn't part of that the denial of the disease of alcoholism?
No, I think
though?
this is a thing on America.
Yeah.
You
get a 30-day fix and you're fixed.
Right. It's just it's one of those things. It's you're fixed. And why? I mean, how many people go for regular checkups? I mean, really, we were talking about that on the way here, you know.
Most doctors don't.
Right. Right. Most, I mean, how many, and it's like, you we're given this amazing thing, however it is, by whoever, you know, these bodies that we do not, you know,
we take for granted.
We take for granted. Yeah. And it's why I've just invested 30 grand. Why spend an extra couple?
Right.
That's the question everybody constantly asks themselves.
It's kind of funny. I make the analogy, if I went to college to learn how to ride a bike, you know, and I studied rotation, gravity. It doesn't mean I know how to ride a bike. It just means I have some type of understanding of what's required to ride a bike. Right. But until I actually have the experience, all I have is an intention, maybe some knowledge and some awareness. And I think that's the biggest disparity is you go into treatment, you get this education and say, now go out there and apply these tools. It's insane. To me, it's literally insane.
I think we're also hitting a wall, though, where the science of addiction was largely ignored for a long time, and very underdeveloped. And recently now we have brain scans, and we're actually having longitudinal studies. We're looking at different methods of how to treat addiction, both from a harm reduction standpoint, from public health model. Probably boring people to death on the radio right now. Right? But my point is that things are changing and developing.
We're going to get fun in the next segment.
We are?
Yeah. Jeremy's going to take off his shirt. We're going to do the polka. And we're going to have, because actually one of the things we do talk about on the show is that is about the fun.
Yeah.
And about the fun in sobriety. And I think that's a sober house's job too.
Yeah.
You know, is a sober living's jobs. You know, it's like tonight at the treatment center. I went yesterday.
We can talk about it.
It doesn't break HIPAA laws. We got a barbecue. You know,
we had a big barbecue.
This afternoon, and
with clients.
With clients, and it was great. They had just a great time. And one of the clients was joking, "Hey, you got to be, because you got a beer," because he was joking, obviously. But that's one of the things. It's like we have to teach people how to have a barbecue without a beer.
Right.
And it might as well do it in these places.
And I love that. You do it in a controlled environment with amongst other people who are sharing the same experience, and that really is the strength of shared peer experience.
Right, and I was affiliated with a few sober livings that every time the scary thing about Andrew over here is if you say an idea, he might let you run with it.
Okay.
So we're like in the middle of like running with this little idea I had that's like becoming really pretty big. And so like many times in sober livings I would suggest certain things and I would say, hey, let's do this, and they're like, we can't take clients there. How can we go to a baseball game?
Yeah.
But baseball games are important, or all these types of things. We have to show people how to live life.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of treatment facilities or sober livings are doing that, which is why I love where we are in West Hollywood. And you're pretty close to us, right?
Yeah, very close, right down the street.
You're in Havenhurst?
Actually on Hillsborough.
Hillsborough.
Yeah.
I was close.
Robertson, though, straight down Robertson. Yeah. But I think that's extremely important is that in anybody's life, you need to have a sense of balance. Why would people in recovery be any different? So much is stress. Oh, you got to get a sponsor. You got to go to meetings. You got to do the steps. You got to get therapy. And I just think, you beat them over the head. After a while, it becomes a job, and it doesn't really become an enjoyable experience. So
Right.
you have to show them some sense of balance.
Well, I think that's my ongoing biggest criticism of people that just become sort of institutionalized into recovery, not realizing that the whole point of all of this is to get a life back.
Right.
Right? To get back to some sort of level of normalcy without having to intoxicate yourself to the point where you can't function.
I simplify it. I just say, listen, me personally, I want to live in the penthouse, but in order for my building to stand, I need a strong foundation.
Right.
That's it. But you don't stay in the lobby the rest of your life.
Right.
It's the same. Although you do see people do that.
Sometimes there's a hot chick at the desk.
No, but it was like somebody
Take it
last
to the
night.
penthouse.
One of my favorite lines though in sobriety is last night. We'll take a break in a second. But one of my, somebody was talking to me last night, and they don't really have that much knowledge of sobriety, and they said I'm bored. Right, and when I said I'm bored, they said, you know why? Because you're boring.
My sponsor told me that.
And it was really funny when I didn't even get a chance to say it to them, and because they had some other thing of why they were bored, so it ruined my saying you're boring, but it's the truth. When I got sober, I was a boring person.
Right.
I was really boring, and you have to learn how to become unboring.
Yeah, I also think a lot of that has to do with depression and inability to deal with one's emotions and insecurity and.
Absolutely not. I was going to jump on that point. Is that a lot of early recovery is. Bottom line is you have a disconnect from your emotion and underlying issues, fears, especially social anxiety, acceptance, validation from your peers. It's easier to sit in what's comfortable, and that's quite often doing nothing, than actually to take risks and walk through that uncomfortable.
Yeah, I also think that people don't know what they want. You spent 20 years using sometimes, thinking that what you wanted to do was use and do whatever you were doing while you were using. And then all of a sudden you get sober and everything that you were doing all of a sudden isn't what you want to do anymore.
Right.
And then you don't know what you want to do.
Right. Well,
Right?
the hardest
So-
lesson in recovery, I think the path is figuring out who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, identity formation, right? Yeah.
Which I think, can I tell you something? I think that's humans. Obviously, we talk about Maslow, right? What's the highest form on
Hierarchy
that?
of needs.
What is it?
Well, you're way off. So I'm not going to.
Who am I? But what is it? Is self-actualization?
Yeah, but okay.
Okay.
So where are you going with this?
I think that as humans, thank you, kind soul. I think that as humans, that's what we want to do. We want to find out. I think hopefully.
A lot of humans don't.
Right, most humans don't. But that's why I love when people always say, well, Bill Wilson wanted to, when he wrote the steps, he wanted to write to others, that it was basically, the steps really don't work if you don't have a problem. Nobody just wants to one day do a moral inventory.
It's funny because I hear a lot of people say that everybody should do this.
Right,
stuff.
but I only hear people in 12 steps say that. Okay, you never hear people.
I disagree.
Really, you've heard people that don't work the 12 steps say.
I've had a lot of friends who listen. I joke with most people, especially in America, they're for sort of addiction is sort of chasing false idols as a property, power, prestige.
Right.
And here's the kind of joke in America: most men hit 50, they hit the career, they get the money, they get the job, they have everything that most people would demonstrate as success. They're freaking miserable. They get rid of the wife. They buy the sports car. That's their bottom. It's called midlife crisis.
Right.
That's normal people. Now, there are a fraction of society that are actually normal, and they always absolutely impress me when I see healthy families communicate and share and validate and love each other. But, I disagree. I have a lot of friends that are not addicts, and I introduce 12-step to them.
And
because alcohol is only mentioned
And do they
in the first
actually
step.
do it?
Yeah.
Wow. I got to meet
They
your
actually
friends.
look at it.
That's next week's show.
I think
Jeremy's
that goes
friends.
very much with my points that the 12 steps really are not really all about addiction. It's one part.
Right,
It's about development.
Right, almost all of it isn't.
Right.
But you have to have. Most people don't want to have. Most people don't go to the doctor unless
Once
they're
again,
sick.
here's where we go. You can't say that addiction is a disease and then say that the treatment is a non-medical intervention. You can say that you can say that that one part of the treatment is a non-medical intervention,
Right.
and that it's helpful. But if addiction is truly a disease, there has to be a medical model to
Right.
help treat it.
Yeah, the only part, even if you had wonder drugs that could actually take away the obsession to use, you still have what we talk about in the second part of the first step, the spiritual malady.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. One part.
Right, and that applies,
Right.
I think, to most people. So alcohol is only mentioned in the first part of the first step.
Well, the
rest
irony is that
about
if you look at diseases
self-actualization.
like heart disease or I don't know, diabetes, I guess we use a lot on the show. It's interesting that
Let's
there
come up with a
isn't-
new one.
Well, but there isn't any sort of treatment besides the medical intervention.
Well, there's also changing behavior, changing
But there
habits.
isn't, but there isn't really, like, you don't get diabetes and people say go to DA.
True.
Right, but you do have to do a spiritual change. We both know somebody right now that's dealing.
If you're going to live.
If you're going to live, and we spoke to Doug Kane when we had Doug Kane on, and this was one of the things he was
Right, 'cause
talking
he's
about.
diabetic.
Well, they
Right,
just
'cause
simplify. They call them support groups.
support, right? But right, and one of the things he was talking about as far as his diabetes goes, that it's a spiritual change that had to happen, because how many people that are diabetic lose feet?
Right.
Because they stop taking care of themselves.
Yeah, I also think there's this assumption that people really want to live, and I don't think that's always the case. You know, I think, you know, a lot, people don't like to talk about it, but a lot of people are depressed and a lot of people are suicidal, and they're just trying to get by, you know, and using drugs or eating to the point where they're, even though they're diabetic and being self-destructive, to them that's just like, it's a slow suicide. It's a way to just deal with this incredible pain they're in, and they don't really see another solution.
But we also tell alcoholics that, you know, at some point you need to realize alcohol is not your problem. You're your problem.
Alcohol is but a symptom.
Is but a symptom. Right. It's your solution. You take away the solution, we need to find you a new solution.
Correct.
Okay, the number here is 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830. Give us a call whether you agree, you disagree, you want to join in, chime
We got
in.
Sonny on the line.
We do have Sonny on the line, who's probably back from Cleveland. And was me.
You know, it's Cincinnati, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Was it Cleveland?
no, it's Cleveland because I want my Cleveland Indians hat.
Oh, right.
And you're listening to KLEAN Radio. That's Clean with a K. And we're in the studio tonight with Jeremy Stanton on our Friendly House. And
No, that's Haven House.
Haven House.
Friendly House is a wonderful
Friendly
place.
House is what I'm on the board.
Sorry, I knew I heard Friendly House. Haven House. It would be something if it was Friendly House.
It's a friendly haven.
Is Haven House co-ed?
Actually, there are several locations. There's Haven House for men in Beverlywood, Haven House for men in Santa Monica, and Haven House for women in Chevy Hills.
Hey, relax there, Skipper. We'll get to your promos in a few seconds. We'll be right back at KLEAN Radio.
Oh, that was my time. Sorry.
Wish me love, oh, wishing well to kiss and tell. Oh, wishing well a butterfly tea.
Is your drinking getting worse? Are you taking more pills than prescribed? Do you want to quit, but quitting on your own isn't working? Call KLEAN Treatment Center at 888-601-6040. Our 24-hour staff is here to help you. You can also check us out at cleantreatmentcenter.com. That's clean with a K. Addiction is progressive. The sooner you reach out for help, the better the chances are for recovery. Call KLEAN Treatment Center today at 888-601-6040.
Welcome back, Jeremy.
Thank you, Andrew.
I think we lost Judah to his addiction. There he's back with his little dance. You don't know about the Judah dance, I guess.
No.
He does this dance when the intro comes back in, which people can actually see on cleanradio.com. I think we have a clip of Judah dancing somewhere.
we do.
Yeah, it's quite hilarious. It's me looking with these faces of disdain while Judah dances around.
Andrew thinking I've blown his career. I've blown everything he's ever worked for with a dance. But, something I was just thinking about is I grew up in high school. I'm a little younger than you. We might be the same age, but I look better. I love Tom Petty. I love Tom Petty.
That actually makes you older than both of us.
No, I love Tom Petty and the Wallflower. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
And the Wallflower.
And the Wallflowers. I know.
Yeah, those drinks didn't do anything to your mouth.
Yeah. I know. That's how badly I drank. Is like I've intertwined bands.
Just become mush.
Yeah. It's like
here's soup up there.
You roses. And
New roses.
and one of the things I would listen. You'd listen to Tom Petty, and every song was about getting high.
Right.
I can't think of one Tom
Because
Petty
he lived
song.
in the Midwest, there was nothing else to do.
But every single song was about getting high.
Right.
And that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's just amazing the influence that, forget about Amy Winehouse. I mean, we have so many. You listen to Jimmy Buffett. Is there not one song that's not about getting drunk? Even like Cheeseburger in Paradise.
Well, it's basically an industry of one-man drinking songs. Right? Yeah.
Or about you can't get the girls to go drink to get the girl, or whatever it is. Country music is all about that. And, I listen to country music, okay?
What do you think of this? There's this article that just came out talking about...
You just hated what I brought.
I did. It was
Thank
terrible.
you. Yes.
But, I keep you around.
How can you not love Tom Petty? How can you not love Tom Petty? Jeremy?
Did I say anything bad about Tom Petty? No, I just said that,
Are you wearing a DKNY jean shirt tonight?
Yeah, from 1989.
Okay, that should be banned from the studio. DK Donna Karen New York T-shirt.
Do you want me to explain it all?
No. Okay, what topic were you going to bring up?
So there's this cool article that I thought was interesting. There's a movement right now in the General Assembly in Louisiana to try to tie drug tests to welfare benefits.
Can you repeat that? Somebody texted me that's listening
Somebody
to the
in
show.
Louisiana, they're trying to pass drug testing with welfare benefits. So if you get your welfare benefits, you have to get a drug test and pass it.
Well, this is a huge thing that they've been trying to do for a while, that they're going to, try to do for most states. And I think it's a great idea.
You do?
Yeah, you get your welfare check, blow into a breathalyzer.
Guess to keep a job, you have to take a drug test, maybe.
Right. Yeah, and that is a job.
So you're free to do whatever you want legally, as long as, or even illegally, as long as you don't want welfare or a job.
Well, I mean, think about it. The EBT, is that what those called, the food stamps? Because I see them. How many places do you see EBT accepted?
Is that the electronic benefit? Well, that's the card they have now,
That's
right?
the card.
Right.
It used to be stamps.
Right. So now
you
it's
get like a
right
debit
now.
card.
Right. Even that's gone high. It's like you no longer do you have to feel bad about using the stamps, which God forbid.
Well,
some
the reason
people,
that was people were selling 50 cents on the dollar.
Right.
You'd sell your food stamps off to your drug dealer,
Right. So now that you use your EBT card, but Pizza or Domino's, I know, accepts the EBT cards.
Yeah, because you're allowed some prepared food.
Right. So 7-Eleven, the same thing. So, I mean, this is where we've come. It's like 7-Eleven's a luxury. I hate to say it. Slurpees, thank you, Andrew. Luxury. Okay.
Never say I didn't buy you a luxury.
Yes, you bought me a luxury item. But we've come to that point where we were discussing this. What is a right? And what is
Well, aren't they called entitlements?
Entitlements, right?
Yeah,
right.
Pretty much tells you, pretty much
Right.
in the name right there.
So I think the least thing you could do to get a welfare check is pass a urine test. And like I said, maybe the cable company should be in charge of that too.
Yeah, I don't like your cable company idea.
Well, my opinion is the cable companies should collect insurance. Like if you want cable, you have to have health insurance, and it should be both done by the cable company.
So Michigan actually tried this. Michigan actually tried this in 1999.
Right.
Right. So you had to take a drug test as a condition for welfare. It only lasted 2 months before a judge halted it and then ruled it unconstitutional in 2003 for violating the Fourth Amendment prohibition against unreasonable search and seizure. Wow.
I don't think we should be quoting Michigan these days. They're really not doing too well.
Well, that's interesting, though.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think this is a huge problem that we're going to have. I think.
But isn't that so America, though? It's like you've got the libertarian, individualist, unreasonable search and seizure. An individual is free to do whatever they want and be whatever they want, alongside of.
It's illegal.
It's illegal, right? It's illegal to be what we idealize as the
complete hypocrisy.
Yeah, it's just, how do you have a country that have laws that make sense when there's no sort of running thread that's consistent even through
To me, that law seems hypocritical because actually it should be voluntary drug testing, and part of the program should be if you pass your drug test, you receive your entitlements.
Yeah.
Right. Well, entitlements shouldn't be entitlements, maybe, right?
Well, that's a whole different political discussion, but
yeah. Well, it's interesting though. I mean,
but all these things are tied together. These are some. I mean, you run a sober living, you run a rehab.
It's privacy issues, right? I mean, like
but it's not. Who's paying for the entitlements? Taxpayers.
True.
Right. I mean, the least thing you could do to collect $1,000 a month is pee in a cup.
Right.
That really isn't that complicated.
Yeah.
And how many of those tests are actually getting tested anyways?
No, we need a Fourth Amendment attorney out there to call in and explain to us.
Or the guy that did the show before us, isn't he an attorney?
Yeah, he was.
if you're still listening, give us a call.
Listen to our show, which is better than... No, I'm just kidding.
Hopefully you're still listening. No, these are actually... these are things, though, that, we're constantly... You rejected, something I was talking about last week. You rejected a client one time because somebody wanted a client to go into Andrew's facility for free. Andrew said the only thing they need to do is say, I want to go. and they didn't say they wanted to go, and Andrew said you can't come.
Right.
And the person that sent them is like so horrified by Andrew that the only request he had for this patient to come for free was that they said, I want help.
Well, that person might need an Al-Anon meeting.
You think? But they're like running around town saying crazy stuff about him, and it's just hysterical. But that's what we've become. Yeah. Is like the least thing you could do. We is say I want help, or So if you're collecting free money, just say pee in a cup. Yeah. Not that difficult. But I've done it.
Well, it's not really free money though.
Well, for them it is. Yeah.
Well,
although I judge no man.
It's not a judgment, just an observation.
And people do read the bios on the show. I am the only conservative with a sense of humor. And
I thought the whole Reagan administration was a sense of humor.
Yeah, just not many Jews.
We didn't have a comedian in here yet. We're supposed to be trying to be funny. That's not good.
No, but these are, these are huge topics that do come about, and these are things that we have to decide on. I mean, it's in every industry now. Mm-hmm. With how much charging of all these things. And listen, the least thing you could do. If somebody wants help, say I want help, and then we could deal with them. Mm-hmm. And then I think in America most people want to help.
Yeah.
It's like, look what we did after Katrina. Look what we do after the tsunami. We're a country of giving. We just want people to.
Like mental illness is a situation where I think the Constitution even has failed us horribly. Mm-hmm. You look at the homeless mentally ill. Third of the homeless population is mentally ill, unable to take care of themselves, unwilling to go get treatment. They should be mandated into institutions, and deinstitutionalization and the shift of the burden from the state to the federal government. I can go on and on about this for hours, but the reality is that nobody really cares. We'd rather have this illusion of individualism and personal freedom at the expense of really the state constitutional their actual obligation to take care of the indigent and the poor and the mentally ill.
I'm sure you probably don't know the exact statistic, but people that are bipolar that go off their meds. Mm-hmm. What is there? I mean, it's a huge.
Well, it's a spectrum of an illness. So I mean, there's all sorts of levels of bipolar illness.
But most people,
the people you see on the street, the vast majority of them are schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Right.
So the 2% of the population is schizophrenic.
Okay, so is there a drug that could help them?
Yeah, there's lots of drugs that can help.
So why can't
there's new ones coming out all the time?
Right. So I've always thought it would be great instead of the you joked with me. What do the women have stuck in their arms so they can't get pregnant?
Birth control implant.
The IUD, if that's what it's called.
No, IUD goes. Just let's get this right. Okay. IUD goes into the uterus. It's right
uterus.
Yeah. Right intrauterine.
Right.
Device. So
you're the pros, okay? I'm the guy that asks the questions that everybody wants to know.
And it's in there to agitate the uterine lining so that an egg cannot plant itself.
Okay, so what's the thing they stick in the arm?
It's just birth control that's in an implant.
So why can't we put that implant into like a schizo guy of his own meds?
A schizo guy, right? So sensitive. So sensitive.
We actually can.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, it's just about amount of time again.
It's also expense.
So, it's expense. It's also much more invasive. More risk to infection.
But he's a schizo that's going to live on the streets, so that's...
Right, but the point is that we have medications that are a lot less intrusive that you could give them, once a week.
But how many of them continually take their meds?
They don't, but you're going to have the same problem with an implant. 3 months after it wears out.
Well, at least we have 3 months of sleep.
Right, I think also the current cost of... There's other medications for other addictions right now that they're using for alcohol and for a heroin addiction and opiate. But those costs of those medications are so great. I mean, I hate to make a societal comment, but the reality is if there's no money in it, why would drug companies want to come up with a product for schizophrenics?
Right.
Where's the money?
And addiction is one area where it's so hard to get money.
And in fairness to drug companies, it's expensive to develop a drug.
Yeah.
I mean, it costs millions and millions of dollars.
How do you sell that if it's being given to people without payment?
Yeah.
In all fairness.
Yeah.
Damn,
we're being very fair today.
Yeah. No, but I mean, but the one thing is, like we talk about, is when it comes to addiction, for some reason, the government, we fight a war on drugs. Imagine if we actually put all that money into treatment.
Well, that's been my big argument.
You know, it's an insane, and I can't believe I'm even saying that.
Right.
But I mean,
well, 50% of the population would be on treatment, and we'd all be on a beach somewhere.
Right.
Plus, it's ridiculous also because the public persona of what an addict is. I can't tell you how many late nights at 2 o'clock in the morning you see the progression of somebody in their addiction and goes, this is the face of addiction.
Right.
We're sort of the counterpoint saying this is showing people that have recovered and are successful and law-abiding citizens, and actually more than that, saying this is the face of recovery.
Right. You know, a few of the conversations were actually because of somebody I've been I was dealing with today, a close friend of mine, and you know, they were being dead serious. They were talking to a family member, and the family member was like, used Lindsay Lohan as a comparison for treatment, you know, and they weren't saying that. They're a really smart person. They weren't. That's just their idea of what, you know, treatment is. And they're also, they asked, is Vicodin harmful? And now we know it is, because of what right. Okay, let's. But
for an
harmful, right? It can't. Right, but there's so many reasons it could be harmful. Not just of, you know, we were talking about this. You could be blacked out and not know, you know, and just. What is it called? You know, where you're just doing regular stuff, but you don't have no recall. You're in a blackout, but you have no recall, and
you're actually awake while you're doing it and functioning. You just don't remember that you did all that.
Right, and that, if that's not destructive, I don't know. You know, we always think of the destruction with drugs as overdosing, you know, but there are so many different variations of harm that these drugs do.
Yeah, and you don't, like I said, you don't have to be an addict for it to be a problem.
Right.
You know, we have use and abuse that can be just as destructive, if not more destructive, than even addiction. I mean, there's people that are actually functioning addicts for 20-something years on heroin that aren't nearly as destructive as one kid binge drinking on a weekend who kills 4 people in a car accident.
Right.
So there isn't necessarily, you know, we're not talking about just any one issue. We're talking about how these substances affect human beings on all levels. Right.
But again, I think we've become as a society very open to doctors prescribing Vicodin. You know, doctors, you know, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were telling me, you know, in LA, it's either you're sober or you're getting high. You know, and she was being dead serious. And, you know, she's like, yeah, you know, she's telling me about cocaine use. And I'm like, really? I don't see it. No, I haven't seen anybody use cocaine in a really long time. But I guess there's I don't even think it's an under.
You're not hanging out with Lady Gaga.
I am not hanging out with I'm not hanging out with the Gogs. And soon enough, ladies love the judo. Always remember that.
Right. I keep forgetting.
Even the Gaga. But you know, when she was telling me about this, I was like, I get, and I don't even think it's underground.
Right.
You know, because I mean, a bunch of people using coke together in a house is not underground.
So we got a break here for the top of the hour. Got like a minute and a half left here. We got a great comedian coming in. Earl Skakel, who was toured with Rob Schneider, I think, among others. It should be exciting to have in. Talk about his issues with addiction and recovery and get his point of view.
Yes.
which may be as exciting as ours. I don't know.
He's actually enjoying the show outside.
Is he? Yeah. He's very laid back. He needs more food, though. I feel like we're underfeeding people.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
we're going to become feeders.
Yeah, that's your job.
Why don't you give us the phone number if people want to call in?
The phone number here is 877-8830-830. That's 877-8830-830. Sonny will get to you after the break.
Our chronic caller.
Yeah. I love the word chronic. And you're listening to KLEAN Radio. That's KLEAN with a K. And you can find us at Facebook at KLEANradio.com. We'll be back in a sec. Or not. It's nothing worse in radio than dead air, and we went out a little too early. That's Spin Doctors. That's what I'm talking about. 1993, baby.
There's no dead air here.
Holla. And we'll be back in a second.
Addiction is any behavior you cannot stop that results in destructive consequences. Are you struggling with an addiction to drugs or alcohol? Are you ready to take control of your life? The treatment advisors at KLEAN Treatment Center are here to help. Call us today at 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. You can also check us out at cleantreatmentcenter.com. That's clean with a K. The sooner you reach out for help, the sooner your new life begins.
Welcome to Clean Radio on Angels Radio AM 830.
The Sober Lifestyle Show presented by KLEAN Residential Treatment Center, a dynamic and professional addiction treatment facility.
Clean Radio features celebrity and professional interviews covering a wide range of topics. If you or someone you know is in need of assistance in dealing with addictive disorders, call us now at 877-830-830 or go to cleanradio.com. Now your hosts for Clean Radio, Andrew and Judah.
Welcome back to Clean Radio. And there we go, the Judah dance once again.
That's embarrassing.
It's like an epileptic seizure.
So where were we at the?
I don't know. It's great. You know what's great about when you have a camera and you do like what the athletes do, and you go, "I love you, Mom." You know.
Okay, that's a Judaism.
I'd like to say hello to my family. If I had a tattoo on my arm.
I don't know what that was. That was
I had
like
a tattoo
some weird
on my
stripping.
arm. And, you know, but one of the things, and you're getting a bunch of texts there from some liberal out there. And this isn't a political show. This isn't a political show, but, you know, and
It wasn't.
We didn't make it, we're not saying that everybody on welfare.
Might make it more interesting.
We're not saying that everybody on welfare is an alcoholic or an addict.
Right.
That's not the point of that story. The point is that many are. And that there should be testing to get your welfare check to see.
Well, and I said, what difference does it make? Because can't test for the fact that whether they're an alcoholic or not. You're just testing whether they're using illegal drugs.
Right. Let's
Introduce our guest or our additional guest before we just leave him out of all the good conversation.
Who's got a cool bracelet on? Earl Skakel.
Earl
comedian.
Skakel.
What's happening?
You got to speak more into the mic.
I'm going to swallow it.
That's the trick here.
That's what we want on camera.
We're a different kind of show.
Is this on the Logo Network?
Or here.
It's our new syndication.
Here.
So, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's an honor to be here, guys.
Well, thank you.
Is that one of those health what the baseball players were?
Yeah, I played hockey. I just got back from New Mexico and I had a hockey game.
That just sounds so wrong on every level.
No, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
all the baseball players wear those, those necklaces around their neck.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Since you're not a sports fan, and
I like hockey. I like football.
Yeah,
I
except
like boxing.
You like sports where they don't wear necklaces, and where they can.
Yeah, real man sports. Yeah, right.
MMA, man.
Yeah, MMA, right? Hey, that's Patrick. He films half that stuff.
That and softcore porn. It's like the perfect combination.
It's kind of a weird combination.
It's one and the same.
Yeah.
Right?
It sort of is.
It is.
Yeah.
Just different blood.
So, Earl, you're a comedian.
Yeah.
You just came back from Mexico playing hockey.
I got a laugh out of Patrick.
No, I was in New Mexico last night with Deuce Bigelow, so.
Oh.
It's fun. 2,000 people.
Is that Rob Schneider, or are you actually there with Deuce Bigelow?
Well, it's one and the same. So it was fun, and then.
So you opened up for him? Or?
Yeah.
What's that like?
It's
You've been doing that for a while, or?
Like the last 2 years.
Wow. Cool.
Because the guy who was doing it is bipolar, and he kind of got the boot. So.
See, if only he took that IUD.
Yeah. He needed it. Yeah, but it's real fun, and the crowds are. We sell out everywhere. So.
That's great.
That's cool. And if anybody was wondering where Rob there you go.
Right, if you need.
He's a funny guy, Rob Schneider. He is one of those guys that should be working a lot more.
Yeah, no, I mean he started as a stand-up, and then he basically got famous right away. So he he stopped doing it for 17 years because why do a weekend in Idaho when you can?
When you can make a movie in.
Yeah, make a few million bones.
Right.
Are you saying Pachanga isn't that?
I mean, it's not the greatest place in the world, but there's worse.
Is that hard, though, the way that works? Because I'm sure Rob Schneider would have loved to just been a stand-up comedian that worked.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard now for him to do stand-up because everyone wants him to just do his movie lines and you can do it, and he's trying to.
Or what was the Saturday Night Live skit he had?
Steve Areno.
Yeah. They're like, come on, do it, Rob.
Yeah, I mean,
those two things.
He's in the middle of like some amazing joke he just wrote, and some idiot in the back is going, Steve Areno, the cocky guy.
You can do it.
And then it's like a wave. The whole crowd starts yelling out the most obscure lines, and he's really good at handling it. I wouldn't be so adept at. I'd tell people to,
But that's got to be really hard because I'm sure a lot of people look at him now as they're trying to get back into he's trying to get back into comedy, thinking, oh, he's fallen. this is what he has to do now.
Yeah, I mean that's he does have a movie out. He has to be at Route 66 Casino in New Mexico. But he does a lot of movies that don't get like mainstream releases, so he's always working. And
he has his own production company, right?
Yeah, and he's got a show on CBS coming out for the fall. So he does stand up because he really loves doing it.
It's great. So how long have you been in stand up? You've been
11 years.
11 years.
Yeah,
wow, it's a long time.
I made a lot of wrong decisions.
Were you using when you started, or?
I've never had a drug or drink in my life.
Never in your life.
Ever.
This is how wonderful is this?
Yeah, that's great.
Right? We have this theory because every now and then we have someone on that's sober, never used a drink or drug, and we're always like, "What's the reason?"
You know, there's no great mystical reason. I just I don't like the smell of alcohol, so I can't imagine what the taste would be like. And I know you don't drink it for the taste, but
I have that with bacon.
You're Jewish, come on. Man.
But it's so ingrained into me now that I look at bacon and I'm like, ooh.
That's how I look at alcohol, and you know, it's just I've never tried it, so I'm not tempted in the least, even though I'm in a business where I see drug use probably on a nightly basis, to be honest. I won't mention the club,
right?
Locally, but I mean, I've seen cocaine guys doing that 2 to 3 times a week, probably. Right in front of me.
Can I ask you a question? Because I'm absolutely repulsed by it. I mean, it's one of those things. You know,
drug use or drinking?
Both. No. Yeah. When I see people, and I don't think it has to do with. Maybe it is a sobriety thing, but when I see people just doing it, I'm not repulsed. I'm saddened. Is a better word for it. You know, when I see people just openly using coke.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you kind of feel sad for them, and you want to. I don't think it's my place to reach out and say, "Hey, man, you shouldn't be doing that line right now, bro." Because the odds are the line I'm seeing them do isn't their first of the night, so they're probably not going to listen to me. But you know, it's just I don't think you have to do that stuff.
Especially if it is their first of the night, they're not going to listen. If it's their last of the night, maybe.
But I like what you're about to say, because I think there is that belief in that industry that you do have to do it in order to gain acceptance.
It's true to a degree, and you know, a lot of great. Mitch Hedberg was it's probably my favorite comic. He had a lot of drug problems.
Geraldo.
Yeah, Geraldo. I mean, there's
the list goes on and on.
I mean, Pryor,
Steve Martin,
Carlin.
Pretty much all of them.
I didn't know that about
Bruce.
Steve Martin.
Yeah, all the funny ones.
Yeah.
All the funny ones. All the ones that didn't take 11 years to make it.
Right. Well, no, you're right. I can't argue with you. I just thought,
He's going to leave here and start drinking.
anyone got a line? Maybe I got a show in a few hours.
But that's the misconception is they were funny before.
Yeah.
You know, the cocaine use had nothing to do.
I think a lot of it's boredom. I mean,
Right.
you know, you go to comedy clubs and these comics are waiting around for hours, and then they're
somebody
all
offers
pent
you
up.
something.
They go up for a little while, and then they're high off getting off stage, and they can't come down.
Well, that's supposedly the William Holden story. Was William Holden? I mean, I know I'm going old school, but he died of alcoholism. He what was it? He hit his head, he choked on his own puke.
Right.
Yeah, and he was sober for many years, and then he relapsed. But supposedly the story was that he was this Indiana farm boy, basically, and he had this Broadway play, and he had never drank or done anything in his life, and he got so nervous that one of the actors backstage said, "Just take one of the, take a shot. It'll help." And that's where it started. It was like, calm your nerves, just take a shot. They didn't
I actually
think.
see that quite a lot in treatment. People that don't drink or use, and then they hit 19 or 20, and for whatever reason they drink and they go off the race. I think a lot of that is because they come from families where there's been a severe drug or alcohol problem, so they have this fear of it.
Right.
And then they're genetically predisposed to that substance, and they get a hold of it, and
Yeah, and they're off to the races.
Yeah.
I mean, and William Holden was off to the races. I mean, but literally that's what the drink was for, was to calm him down on a Broadway show.
Yeah.
And,
Well, doctors used to prescribe cigarette smoking to calm anxiety.
that's what my doctor does now.
Is that how you...
He's Dr. Feelgood. And, He's Dr. Marlborough.
You can't find a doctor on Craigslist. I keep telling you this, Judah.
Please don't.
can.
Yes, you can. Please don't insult my doctor. Okay, he got his medical degree in Grenada.
You won't
Right.
find them in
Okay.
casual
Dr. Philip
encounters.
Morris.
So you've never taken a drink or a drug?
Never, not even close.
Judah can't even comprehend.
No,
that.
I
It's
can't.
like-
I mean, but how many people have tried to get you to?
Oh, everyone. All my close friends.
Have they offered
Anybody
you
that's
money?
ever cared.
Have they offered you money?
Basically, they're like, Earl, you're so funny sober. We got to get you ripped. And, you know, it's just not my thing, you know.
Right.
That's great.
I mean, I don't look down on people who indulge.
You better not with 3 to 1 in the studio.
I'm in the hornet's nest right now.
Yeah. Oh, we'll beat your. Look at him. Look at our camera guy. He's like just sitting there with his arms folded. Yeah, you better not.
You know, he looks like a Dawson's Creek guy in roids.
Yeah, he does actually. You're right.
Yeah,
picture of him.
It's like James Van Der Beek in good shape.
Mixed with a little Brad Davis in Midnight Express.
Oh yeah.
Oh, here's the Hornets. They're coming for you.
Sadly, Brad Davis, who died of AIDS.
Yeah. Ray Sharkey.
Yeah, died of AIDS, shooting up.
Yeah.
Robin Crosby from Rat.
Wow, you just wow. You know what's great when you don't use drugs, you remember
I get
everything.
it. I
He's
get
a
it.
groupie.
No. That's right. He's actually
Yeah.
he's like his whole philia is watching people OD.
That's his addiction.
Lurks around.
That's
Right.
his
It's getting
addiction.
Let's give him a turn.
I write jokes about it.
Yeah.
I mean, Amy Winehouse, I'm fascinated by. I mean, she did so many drugs. She went to horse tranquilizers. I mean, that's a whole nother level. I mean, when you're shooting up horse tranquilizers, you've run out of drugs to take.
Yeah, that's true. I used to know someone that actually got a job working in an animal laboratory so that they could get a hold of more hardcore tranquilizers.
Well, it's like people that get surgery. I mean, how many people do we know that
Right,
have
they'll have a leg taken off,
right,
or
right.
a few teeth out,
constantly in the dentist's
or,
office?
break their arm on purpose,
Yeah.
just to get painkillers.
I mean, I knew a guy. He was a bodybuilder who took bull steroids. I mean,
Right.
and he took the same dose that they gave an 800-pound bull
Wow.
because he was so into his body.
How'd that work out for him?
I think he died. He kind of went off the grid.
He got nut Elias.
Yeah.
That's where your testicles.
No, his testicles were on that grape commercial, that raisin commercial. Right?
That's where your testicles and your tonsils could meet up.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I never saw his testicles, so I'm not.
Raisin standard.
It's okay. We don't think you did.
We do know that we've got the voyeur part down
Yeah.
with the overdose.
Hey, you know what? Can I
wouldn't
tell you
go with
something?
it.
I would be too. I mean, it's like there's nothing I enjoy more than going to the airport, and was watching
There's
people.
nothing. Wait, hold on a
Right.
second. That's a
Right.
Judaism.
Yeah, I love
There's
going to the
nothing
airport.
you enjoy more than going
If
to the
somebody
airport.
asks me to go pick them up at the
What
airport,
kind of life
I
do
will
you
get
have?
there 45 minutes early, and I will park when I want to pick you up from the
You
airport.
I've always wondered that. Like everybody's always like, you're the only person that ever picks me up from the airport. That's like, there. I can hire a car service that's 20 minutes.
It's
late.
because I actually get
You're
it.
just like there
I
early.
enjoy getting there early.
and he's got food and a drink.
Yeah, there's nothing better than getting to, like, international's the best because it's like watching people scared that their passport's not going to work. It's just like this. It's like
There's something really twisted about that.
I enjoy it. I mean, I used to when I was younger before
enjoy
9/11.
other people's
One of my
anxiety
fantasies
too.
was like to go to the airport with like a lot of change in my pocket.
Is this
and just have to-
is this your example of fun in recovery?
You know what? However you have to have it,
Okay.
as long as it's
Whatever
sober. But
floats your boat.
it's
I
one of
think,
those
I think
things.
this is an example of dual diagnosis.
Yes. And I will be committed tomorrow. But what comedians have you seen that have you? You were talking about Hedberg and all these guys. Hedberg got sober for a while, didn't he? Or I don't know. I
don't know if he was completely sober. He might have given a few half attempts, but it's hard for comics to stay sober because everyone around you is doing some form of alcohol or narcotic, and most of them just give in because it's just too much. And on the road, I've had guys offer me drugs just to meet Rob. They're like, "Hey, here's some coke. Can we meet Deuce Bigelow?" I'm like, "What are you talking? Get away from me!"
I only take 20s.
Yeah. You give me some cash.
If you give me what you used to snort it with, yes.
I can
What would
arrange.
you want cash for?
I can arrange a meet and greet for 100.
Right.
That's
But-
pimping.
No,
Yeah.
that's actually pretty amazing that people offer you drugs so you can meet Rob Schneider.
Yeah, or they're just find me funny or whatever. They're like, "Hey, you were great. Here's a dime bag," and it's like, "I'm good."
But you know what's a perfect? It's actually something I'm thinking about. There's a comedy place in New York that I'm very familiar with. That almost all the comedians there are sober, and I'm talking about a long time sober, and some of the bigger name comedians out there, and they all hang out at the comedians table, and all of them are sober. And it's almost funny when you see a drunk comedian, that's even big, like come to that table. It's like he doesn't sort of fit in. But it's like when you're on the road with all these comedians, it's like they don't want to lose their running buddy.
Yeah, and there's just so much free time on the road to get into trouble.
Right.
Luckily I just go on the internet and
maybe that is your addiction. Yeah.
Right, Craigslist casual encounter.
South Bay.
Well, I stay in the Hollywood area, but you got to do it like the Al Jazeera pictures with the newspaper and the date. Just make sure they're a woman.
Like the kidnapping photos.
No, I went one time. I'll be honest. I went to I answered an ad and sent me a few pictures. It was legit. So I go over to the hotel, and a dude answers. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're not the girl in the pictures. And he's like, no, but I'll still... I'm like, no, you won't.
It's like the old bait and switch. Like the second you get there, you're going to be like, oh, I really want it.
Yeah.
I don't care if your name is Rob. I mean, or you know what I mean.
That's how me and Rob met.
It was Rob, right?
Hey, wait a minute. I know you.
Funny. And the number here, by the way, is 877-8830-830, 877-8830-830. We know people are listening. We know people are complaining because they constantly text us, Facebook us, email us with their complaints and thoughts. Have a little cojones and call us up. We're not going to beat you down, even if you are a liberal or a conservative.
Let's start off the night with Sonny.
Okay, let's take Sonny. Sonny, you there?
Sonny, welcome to
I know
KLEAN
you're there. Where else would you be? Hey, Sonny.
I'm going to tell you guys one thing. It's good to be back in California right now.
Cleveland's loss was our gain.
Huh?
Cleveland's loss was our gain.
Oh, well, that's how it goes, though, I think, my opinion.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to meet Judas somewhere. I got him as Harry one. Where do you want to meet you?
I told you the courthouse on
behind the metal
detector, Sonny, and drop the hat off.
Sonny is our regular caller.
Yeah. Sonny, you know what? A
clean loyal.
He is. Sonny will listen. Sonny was in Cleveland last week, and he called us up
and called us from Cleveland while we were on the air.
Yeah.
That sounded like a Craigslist phone call. I'll meet you downtown.
Sonny, where do you want to meet?
How about over there where you guys are at, the AMA 30 studio?
He just wants to get in the studio.
You know what, Sonny? I'll tell you what.
I also want to be your guys' co-host.
Okay, I'll tell you what, Sonny. Sonny, I'll tell you what. Do you have Facebook?
No, I don't.
It's time to get it, Sonny. Do you
have MySpace?
Are you on MySpace?
No, I'm not actually. No, I have a computer, but it's only strictly for my scrolling.
Is it a Commodore 64? Sonny, I'll tell you
what that is.
Do you use floppy disks?
That was my favorite computer. By the way, 4th and Inches on the Commodore 64, quite possibly one of the best video games ever. And anyways, off that, Sonny, I'll tell you what, we're gonna do that. We're gonna have you come in here and co-host with us one week.
Oh, that's a crazy idea.
And, no, Andrew, and you know what? Yeah. Right. When are we gonna do that?
Although, Sonny, you do like me better than Judah, right?
I have absolutely no. I have no favorites.
You guys see background checks on people that
we're thinking about it.
We are going to be on Sonny.
Clearly you haven't, but.
It's funny because you've seen talk radio. Have you ever seen talk radio?
He's the best.
So like Sonny, Sonny.
No, dude, I remember. I think it was last week. You're telling me not to see that movie.
Yeah, don't see it because I don't want you getting any ideas.
Go rent American Psycho.
And don't watch Misery.
So, Sonny, do you have a question for us this week?
Yes, I do. I was wondering, how can I tell from a driver, say if I'm driving on the freeway in my car, how can I tell if he's driving drunk?
Oh, this is like a quiz for us.
I love
like
Sonny because he does come up with good questions.
Right?
Because he doesn't even drive.
I know.
Sonny, the better questions to be if you're on your bicycle.
Hold on, Andrew. I will readily be driving next year. I promise.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so So Sonny's going to be driving
next year.
Wait, how old are you?
He's 15.
Oh, he's 15.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And when they let him out of the institution, he's going to be able to drive.
Whoa, you're going to ask for pictures?
Sonny, do you have a laser pointer? A laser pointer? Sonny?
Yeah.
Do you have a laser pointer?
Hell no, I have a laser gun, but
I bet you do, buddy.
Sonny,
You still want this guy to co-host?
yeah.
actually, yes. And
It couldn't be any
if
stranger.
he kills one of us, any ratings are good ratings. And Sonny, I'll tell you what. The way you know if somebody's driving drunk in front of you is if they're going in and out. If they're going in and out of their own lane. It's
Really?
usually a good
Or
test.
speeding up and slowing down.
Or speeding up or slowing down.
If they hit you in the bike lane.
All right, Sonny. Thank you for being
Sonny,
on.
thanks for coming on hold. But seriously, we are going to have you on because I do want my Cleveland Indian hat that you bought. That's really kind
And you
of
are our #1 fan.
Yeah.
Right on, guys.
Sonny, can you say- can you
we have to. By the way, thanks for having me on, and don't forget those tickets. I'm still waiting for them.
No, we will. Can you say one thing for us before you get off?
Yeah,
Say I'm your #1 fan.
I am your #1 fan.
Thank you, Sonny.
On AMA30, but I'm also other people's #1 fan on AMA30.
Oh, he's a traitor.
Sonny,
That's
please.
the only thing.
See,
So,
you're
yeah,
really
but
a
as of
good
right-
fan.
as of
Sonny,
right now,
nobody
you're
else
on-
gives you the time we do.
As of right now, you're #1 on my top 10 list for all programs.
So we're #10, right? Otherwise, you'd be in your top 9 list.
Sonny, remember you do want to come on and co-host, so
Who's
right?
#1? Alex Jones? You call?
it's like
Barney.
Roger Lodge.
Oh, right.
No, I can't stand Roger.
There you go.
I cannot stand his voice.
Just say who you hate the best guy in AMA30.
Yeah,
and,
the
you know,
biggest-
the highest
Roger
paid.
Lodge.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Sonny, we'll talk to you later.
You guys have a good night. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks.
All right, no problem.
And yeah.
Wow, he's always an experience, that kid.
He, you know what? I relate to him. I do. In a
Really?
sense, I loved when I was 15 years old. I think there's something very romantic about the radio.
You think that guy was 15?
Yeah,
he is
I was going to
15.
say,
Yeah, he's 15.
either he has a thyroid problem,
That guy sounded like my grandfather.
He's drinking. What do you want from him? All
does
right.
he play in the Dominican Republic to that Little League team?
Right? We're gonna have somebody come into the studio. He's gonna be like 78 years old.
Oh gosh.
And the number here is for everybody other than is 877-8830-830. That's 877-8830-830. You know what? Addiction is a tough thing to call about and talk about. It's one of those things. It's one of the reasons we decided to do the show was so we could talk about stuff that people do have questions about. And so even if you're scared to call, we hope we can answer certain things by psychically thinking about what you're thinking about out there.
That's very reassuring for someone in need.
Psychically, let me think. We're like the Johnny Carson Karnak thing. Caller #1 is thinking about
Getting sober.
getting sober.
There
Yes.
we go. All
Listen to
right.
KLEAN Radio. That's 877-8830-830. We'll be back in a second.
Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs? Call KLEAN Treatment Center at 888-601-6040 for a free drug test and consultation. A treatment advisor is available to help you administer the test and answer any questions you may have regarding treatment and more. We are here to help. Call us today at 888-601-6040 or find us online at cleantreatmentcenter.com for your free drug test and the start of a promising future.
I wish. Save me some money. Welcome back to KLEAN Radio, everybody.
That's great. We're very professional tonight, talking when we shouldn't be talking. And,
I think people should know that our breaks are interesting.
yeah, we do.
We don't just stop. We
We actually get along.
I know. It's unbelievable.
It's a very randomly odd thing. It's one of those bizarro things. Andrew respects my brains. It's really what it is.
As he should.
Yeah, as he should. Because Andrew loves the Judah.
Oh my
And,
gosh. The Judah. Who refers to themselves as like a...
It's like The Rock.
That's the company he keeps.
Can I tell you something really funny? Because I do it as a joke, but constantly people say to me, "Isn't it odd that you refer to yourself in the third person?" I'm like, "It's not the third, it's the fourth," because I add the, and they're like watching people's expression, like thinking, "Is there really a fourth person?"
It's
like
possible.
If you add if you add the.
On the
And-
fifth slice is toast, in the fifth dimension sits the Judah.
Yeah.
Final Destination 5. I mean,
Right.
where are they going?
Yeah. Right?
You get there.
So we're in the studio tonight with Jeremy Stanton, owner of Haven House and a few other places.
Well, they're all
Under the Haven House?
Yeah, all under Haven House umbrella. We have 2 men's facilities and a women's facility.
So it's not
all gender specific, though. We don't mix the boys and the girls.
Right.
Not a good thing.
That's definitely true.
Why?
Although boys and boys can do things that girls and girls can do.
Yeah.
What?
Actually, worse.
What are you guys talking about?
Jeremy owns a sober living.
We're talking about the Judah.
And Jeremy owns a sober living. Sober living is basically a transitional place after you get out of treatment center, that you could work and, live in a clean and sober lifestyle. Hopefully.
But you can't have boys and girls together because they'd
Not
be
the same housing.
yeah.
If you really understand addiction, not from a chemical dependency standpoint, but really what addiction is. It's
Right.
really, in my opinion, a dysfunctional codependent relationship with the world.
Right.
Right? And what is the next best thing that's going to give you that rush or make you feel good after alcohol and drugs?
Sex.
Oh, sex, for sure.
You went the reverse
That's-
way.
I'm going in reverse.
Have you done that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You've done sex. Good. Okay.
I have an addiction.
Actually, when he was telling me he had never done drugs, I'm like, and you're going to add in you're a virgin too, right?
Well, I did go to a Cocaine Anonymous meeting once because my friend who had problems with that narcotic, he said, Earl, you got to go to the Coke meetings at Caesars. The girls there are amazing. Sunday nights at 6 o'clock. It was like, wow, this is amazing.
They're all very thin.
Can I be honest? I sort of want to go now.
I'm telling you, I don't know if it's still at 6 o'clock, but it's worth either starting the drug or just faking it because, it was like all models. There wasn't one slob in the bunch. And
Right.
Have you guys ever seen that where guys actually come into the rooms, men and women come to the rooms that don't really have an addiction problem, but just want a place to belong?
You mean L.A.?
Yeah.
Hey-oh.
Yeah, of course. I think, we're a free, 12 steps, you're a free society. You are who you say you are. You could go to Minnesota tomorrow and say you have 19 years sober.
Right.
And nobody's going to go, let me see the papers.
Right.
And do I think a lot of people.
Well, it's like Bob Forrest said. He thinks that a lot of people go to AA because they're lonely, not because
Right.
they really have a substance abuse problem.
Right. Listen, if you're in an AA meeting or you're in a narcotics meeting, for whatever reason, something isn't going great. Right. Whatever it is, if you're in an AA meeting, something is probably a bit amiss in your life. So whatever gets you to help, God bless, or atheist blessed, whatever it is,
Right.
God bless. Right, Ramatadin, and
Allah, praise Allah.
there we go.
no, just joking. Whatever gets you to help is what gets you. So I don't care if people are in meetings, if you're really going to a meeting to get a job, then I guess you needed a job. If you're willing to label yourself an alcoholic,
Right.
And go to a 12-step meeting to find
That would
out-
explain probably why
Right.
you don't have a job.
Right. It's just 'cause I don't But yeah, so and that's a great question though, and it comes to the point where what I think one of the reasons why Andrew and I get along so is because in the end of the day we say who cares, and I think that's the biggest thing is we don't judge, we don't it's not who cares,
Right.
Whatever gets you.
And I think we're still looking for answers. I mean, I
Right.
don't think we come from this place where we say, hey, we know what this is, we know it works,
Right.
and we know that everything's going to be fine. We know that this is an evolving industry and evolving issue, and it seems to keep getting worse. It's like now we have all these new drugs that are popping up again.
Right.
So every time we think we kind of got a clue as to what's going on and what people are coming in on and detoxing.
Kids are
off of.
clever.
Yeah, they're coming up with all sorts
Yeah.
of stuff, and not just we got some clever chemists up there coming up with some new.
Isn't that
some-
amazing? It's fascinating. We have like people in their bathtubs spinning
Right.
stuff around, like to beat stuff. I mean, it's but one of the things we talk about, and I spoke about this to my therapist for years, and is years. And finally, I found somebody I could talk to about it out loud. But there is this fear in the 12 steps of ever saying I disagree.
Right.
There is a fear of saying. I don't, how many people out there do you hear when you and I go to a plethora of 12-step meetings, that think that by working the first step, you're basically saying I give up.
Right.
You're saying I'm a loser.
Right.
Is really in essence, instead of realizing that the first step is basically saying I'm regaining power.
Right.
By admitting powerless over alcohol, I regain power. that as long as I don't take a drink or a drug, alcohol and drugs has no power over me. And you don't hear that spoken about a lot. It's like one of these, there's a lot of things that people don't, talk about. In the book, how many stories are talk about drugs, or go get help from outside sources. This might not be your only, so a lot of stuff hasn't been spoken about.
I agree. I mean, I think really, but you also got to remember it's a disease of perception.
Right.
So, when it's one alcoholic helping another, it is a process of constantly evolving.
Right.
So, you quite often see most of the people with the most enthusiasm are early in recovery. Right, so their perception of the way they see the book and the way they see the program may not be as evolved as somebody with double digit sobriety or even longer. I know me personally when I work with sponsees, the first thing I say, the greatest gift you have is when you wake up tomorrow. You have the greatest gift of all. You've regained the power of choice.
Right.
And in a sober state of mind, if you decide to pick up and use, that's your choice. You really can't blame anybody else but yourself.
But you know what? That's amazing that you say that, but you don't hear that a lot.
Right.
You don't. You don't hear that a lot. And I.
Plus, I usually rephrase it. It's not that you're surrendering. What you're becoming is becoming willing to surrender some belief systems that just don't serve you.
Right.
And that's really what you're surrendering. You're not surrendering any sense of power. It's really willing to let go of a preconceived or a established belief system that you're willing to say for now, you know what?
And lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just not working for you. That is just not working for you.
So we say surrender to win.
Yeah.
And you hear that a lot.
Yeah. But it's, that's a great, I love the way you stated that. It's like, you're right. We do, when you put it down, you regain choice.
Right.
Well, it's also the hope of another solution. I mean, the reality is that most people that use or self-medicating for something.
Right.
To get to the point that they're fully addicted, unless they're just hugely genetically predisposed. And even then, you have to have a reason to get to the point of that. It just doesn't happen that easily.
Right.
I mean, everybody assumes that, people drink and they become addicted. And I think that's a lot of the whole thing also where, what part of it is a moral issue and what part of it is a disease issue, and is there some blame in becoming an addict? Have we made it so much of a disease that we don't have sort of any, why do we have these soaring rates of adolescent addiction? Is it maybe because we pulled back from any sort of like personal responsibility of the individual?
Or is that we have doctors, is that we have doctors giving out tons of Ritalin pills, or
I mean, most of the narcotics that are being abused are gotten illegally. I mean, they're from the internet. I think probably the vast majority of them.
I think it hits more on the head of what you're saying. It really is, in my opinion, a systemic or a family disease. Most of us learn our parents are our role models, our teachers, and I just hate to say it. I know when by the time my generation started growing up, there wasn't the old traditional two parents at home. I had an alcoholic mother and a very, at times physically and verbally abusive father. What kind of tools, coping mechanisms are you teaching a child?
Right.
So I think the responsibility really, my opinion, is that it's half nature, half nurture.
Right.
Right? And obviously the medical community can start addressing the biological aspect, but there still is a second component that needs to be
and
addressed.
medicine has never been good at this.
Right. But the irony, I think the big stigmatism on why there's such a negative stereotype of alcoholics is because medical science really is only now catching up to what public perception or observation of end-stage alcoholism is.
Right.
That's, I think, the biggest problem.
But it's very interesting what you're talking about, because we were talking about this about a month ago, or whenever the MTV movie awards were, and Reese Witherspoon made that speech. You don't have to do a porno video, you don't have to. But how many girls out there, young girls, see whether it's Paris Hilton or Kim Kardashian, things that used to be extremely taboo.
Yeah.
I love his. He's like, hells yeah. But I mean, and you used to, but how accepted have certain things become? We're accepting it younger and younger, so maybe your thing with drugs is that we become so accepting of...
Well, I think also we've really promoted a instant gratification society.
Right.
Instant gratification society with everything.
An instant fix.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Even if the fix becomes a problem.
Right. It's like no longer is it like your kid needs help. You know, maybe he should like talk about it. It's like your kid needs help. Let's give him some Lexapro. You know,
Or learn to be quiet
Right.
instead of taking Adderall.
Or give mommy, or just give mommy some Valium so I can tolerate the kid.
right. You know, hell, I mean, how
That would
many
be my solution.
people give their dogs antidepressants?
Is that wrong?
Yeah, I mean, what have we become when your animals are taking antidepressants? You know, as a society, we've gone a bit amiss.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just used to put the dog to sleep.
Right.
Michael Vick. I mean,
Michael Vick, right. He was actually.
Maybe he was onto something.
He was just
Nah,
a bad
I'm kidding.
pet psychiatrist.
Michael Vick just believed in survival of the fittest.
listen,
There's
he
a
treated the
lobotomy.
winners well.
But again, look at him, you know, signed another huge contract. You know, it's amazing how quickly we forget. You know, it's like you look at Alec Baldwin. You know, a couple of years ago, he was on the phone screaming at his daughter, she's a fat pig, you know. You think any other industry, you know, we were talking about the entertainment industry, they would look, if you were a banker,
Yeah,
right?
but that would never make the internet. If you were a banker,
You know, really? If you ran Chase, JP Morgan Chase.
if you ran
JP
but
Morgan
nobody
Chase.
would be filming. I don't know.
Oh, the guy did get in trouble for his $1
I
million
don't know the
bathroom.
guy.
But
I don't know the guy from Chase.
or whatever.
My money's in his bank, Judah. Come on.
Right, but
Give the guy a
my
break.
account just like went to zero, right?
right, you just signed up
I'll
with
show
Chase.
this guy.
But right, this flag.
Right.
Bad thing about Chase said. But you know, it's like there is no, you know, there is no. We don't. It's an industry that doesn't care. You know, we were talking about before about the with the entertainment industry not really caring.
Well,
And
yeah. As long as they're profitable for
Yeah.
whatever company. I mean, OJ, I'm convinced, would get a sitcom if
they thought they could make money on it.
Yeah.
What would the name of that sitcom be?
Juiced.
But you know, it's like great. You know,
Juicing.
and my friend Tony Dennison, who's big
fan of his. Crime Story.
Yeah, he's great. Ray Luca. We're talking about Tony. Tony always says whenever he wants to pitch a show, he wants the guys that pitched Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah.
You know, can you imagine being in that room in Hollywood? You know, you're pitching a POW, Nazi POW, a comedy about Nazi. That he's like, that's who I want pitching my shows.
With a black guy running sound. How did he get on the set of Hogan's Heroes?
Right.
Yeah, it was weird.
So in this town, it doesn't. As long as you're cha-chinging, as long as you're making the money, it's a very different industry. You're right. Maybe stockbrokers are also. You're right. You know, as long as they're making money, they don't really care how much coke they're doing in the back.
Well, look at athletes. I mean, how many of them have huge drug problems and teams know about it? I mean, the steroids in baseball. They
Steroids
knew.
in all sports.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, but you know, when Mark McGwire and Sosa were making huge home run numbers and Major League Baseball was at all-time high profits, they didn't care.
Yeah. How did they miss that one?
Stevie Wonder could have seen that on Mark McGwire.
I mean, I remember though as a kid, like, you know, I mean, I was younger at the time. I was like 13 or 14. You'd hear in the outfield everybody just screaming steroids at Yankee Stadium. You know, when Jose Canseco was back there or any of these guys. It wasn't like fans didn't know.
Right.
Right.
And you know, I mean, really, Major League Baseball at the time made a deal with the devil. Exactly what happened was they had the lockout, and I know you're not a sports fan, but they had a lockout where, I think it was '94, where they canceled half the season, or '95, and that's when baseball needed to get their numbers up, and all of a sudden these home runs were flying out of the park. They're like, "Oh, this is amazing! Sammy Sosa's head grew 6 inches, but not from steroids," you know. And Mark McGwire, Mark McGwire, if you look at his rookie card, was this tiny, slim guy, you know.
Look at Barry Bonds.
Right.
I mean, when he was in Pittsburgh, he looked like Roger from What's Happening. And then the Giants last season, he looked like Rerun.
I mean, his head grew 6 sizes.
His foot grew 2 full sizes.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, so I mean, it's we don't care until somebody cares. I mean, it's like, you know.
Well, it's also easy to care after you've already collected the money.
Yeah.
Right? The damage is done. Revenues are up. Attendance was up. Merchandising's up. Now he's retiring.
Yeah.
Let's come down on
Now
it.
let's look at the books. Did you see the story last night? This cop got arrested for DUI. He crashed a Dare truck into a tree. This is a true story.
To Mark Furman.
But he crashed a dare truck into a tree.
Is that even? Oh, wow, that's so sad.
He was right. He was the poster for dare, and but yeah, I mean it's very sad. And then we say to the kids, don't use drugs. You can make millions of dollars signing this unbelievable contract, but don't use drugs. And you know, how many kids? Why would you listen?
Right.
It's tough.
But they follow their idols. Like how many young girls probably did coke or weed or whatever because they liked Amy Winehouse.
Yeah.
Well, she does it. It's got to be cool.
Or how many girls put up scandalous pictures of themselves on the internet because they watch, you know, Miley Cyrus?
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it's like, you know, sometimes I look at these pictures and I'm like, put some clothing on. You know, grow a little shame. There's nothing wrong with a little old-fashioned shame. And I don't mean morals. There's a difference between, and I think this is what we were talking about. There's a difference between shame and morals.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Do I think there's a difference between
Yeah.
shame? Yeah, I do think there's a difference.
But I think they become very intertwined.
I think that shame is a mechanism that often morals use to enforce.
It's also a healthy shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
There's a healthy level of shame.
There's healthy ego.
Right.
Right. And then how you process that shame is what's important. I mean, you know, there's people that feel guilty about shame and it becomes destructive. That's not healthy shame.
Yeah, me. People that grow up in Orthodox Jewish homes. You know, people that grow up in religious homes.
The technology too, though. I mean, you look at like swimsuit issue for Sports Illustrated when I was a kid.
That was the greatest.
Cheryl Teagues.
Yeah,
oh my God, she's in a one-piece bikini. Now you go on the
You had
internet.
to get at the limb.
Yeah, you know, that's a great example. You used to have to work to get porn, okay? Getting porn was like this whole process, okay? It was like you had to get like the $7 together. You had to go to the store, make sure none of your family members or anybody that knew your family was there.
I just love it. We have this great show on addiction, and Judah's like coming up with the history of scoring porn.
Right.
But what I'm talking about is
for like months, and he can't let it go.
It's an addiction. Well, no, but what I'm talking about though is that you used to have to work to get stuff. Now it's a click.
That's what I mean about
Yeah.
instant
You know,
gratification.
right?
society.
You know, it's like I remember
Technology.
when I was a kid growing up, the most I would see was the Elvira up all night on TBS, constantly praying a boob would pop out, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. Those B movies that you'd see,
Channel
and it was
9.
like it was like part of the growing up process was it not thank you for the sound effects. We're now like officially like the Tom Leykis show, and
Get the abortion. I've had 4 of them.
but there is this thing that no longer it's like, I mean, all of us are the age where you had to call a girl up to go on a date. Right, where you actually had to have enough guts to do whatever it's like that scene from Say Anything before he calls Ione Skye, you know, he like psychs himself up, runs around the room. There's something to work. You know, there's a spirituality to work. You know, somebody asked me this. I was talking to somebody on the phone yesterday. I got a barbecue for the center, for the Clean Treatment Center. So I went to the Home Depot, you know, and my girlfriend and I, and she brought it down. And and so I was on the phone with somebody last night. He's like, "What'd you do today?" And I go, "Oh, I bought a barbecue." And he's like, "Maybe you have it delivered." And I was like, "No, why would I have it delivered?" He's like, "I'm like, that costs like $70." You know what I mean?
More than the barbecue.
More than the barbecue. And I said to him, "There's something, there is a spirituality."
I absolutely agree with that. Matter of fact, you know, most of the guys in my house, I tell them that the great part about recovery, at least my experience, is that by the time I got sober, I'd lost everything. But the greatest lesson I learned in recovery was that everything I had earned, I had to work for. But guess what? Nobody can take that away from you.
Right.
Nobody can take that away from you. It's an amazing development for your own sense of self-esteem and personal growth, is that you earn that, right? And so many, and I'm sure you've dealt with it too. You know, we deal with a lot of really entitled, and whether they have money or not money, it's really a personal sense of entitlement that I see so many addicts come in with. And even recovery, they want instant recovery.
Right.
You know, again, treatment. But you know, I just think I can't stress more than, and piling on what you're saying, is that the absolute value of earning something, nobody can take that away from you.
Right.
You know, I think it's just not stressed enough.
And societally, we've changed. I mean, you know, it's like, I mean, take for instance sexting, right? You know, no, but
What's
I mean, not that.
I'm
But 16 and 17-year-old kids are sexting each other. I mean, they're like, sending naked pictures. I mean, it used to take work to get to see somebody naked, or you had to pay in the city. Okay, but there was.
You're not supposed to say this like you're upset,
right?
Like that you didn't get to do it.
No, what I'm saying is,
once again, it's about you.
What I'm saying is, as I look back on my experience, I'm happy.
Not like your pictures are not good enough for that anymore.
But but what I'm saying is, I'm happy.
Congressman Wiener.
And there's a new guy, but what I'm saying is, as I look back now, we were talking before, and you said to me, "What's changed?" And I'm saying, I'm able to look at my life. If some things that I used to hate,
right?
The fact that I had to go and work, or I had to go and do certain things. I had to go feed a cat as my first job. Right. That I had to do that. It did something. And obviously I messed up along the way, and it wasn't the perfect. But there was something to feeding that cat every day, and I hated the smell of the cat food. It was disgusting. Now I sound like I'm 90, but when I was young,
you really sound like you're 90.
I know.
It's called humility.
I'm an old soul. Yeah, there is something to being humble. Yeah, there is something to it. And there is something to calling. I think. To calling a girl up on a date. There is something to that.
I also think that people don't realize that people that, there is something about our culture, like, go out, work on Wall Street, make a few $1 million bucks. And the guys that do that, the ones that I've met at least for the most part, they're blowing it all as fast as they're making it. It's like there's this weird thing. Nobody tells you the whole part. It's this idea that it's all about obtaining and getting. It's not about. I think
it's kind of like we were talking about.
Yeah.
That
what do you do with
drive?
It? What do you do with this stuff?
Right.
What is this stuff for? What is life about? And nobody seems to really have great answers for that.
It's all about success. It's all about the end result, the reward. But really, nothing at the end of the day is, what's you defining you as a person.
Because
it's so externally driven.
There's no spirituality in it.
Exactly.
And when I say spirituality, I'm not referring to religion.
I think the other major problem is that everybody seems to think they're going to be like really famous.
Well, these days especially.
And that they're going to be it's not okay just to be an okay person.
Right.
Everybody has to be like the number one in their field.
Have you ever seen the movie Bronx Tale?
Yeah.
And one of my favorite lines in that is the working man's the hero. That De Niro keeps on telling that kid, who sadly is in jail right now.
Right.
But, for killing.
He didn't learn much making the movie.
Right. But the working man is the hero.
Except for how to handle a gun.
But how many of us, I know what your dad does, how many of us, you look at your dads as a kid and you're like, come on, you know what I mean? Like, because you want, you see different, outside sources and you want more. And years later, I look at my dad and I say, my dad was the hero. It's like I would watch The Wonder Years. And I hated it when you were growing up in the 80s, you'd see like Growing Pains and Family Ties, and I was like, why is my family not like that?
Right.
Why is my dad not, and then I watched The Wonder Years and I saw this guy on it that I could finally say, that's my dad, and then, years later say, well, that's the hero. It's the guy, you're right, that just wants to provide,
right.
And that's okay.
Well, it's also kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, just the whole promotion of our society to kind of move away from just taking personal responsibility. That's gone.
Yeah.
That's gone. I mean, whether you say it locally, nationally.
But we see it so much, nationally. I mean, like when you watch BP spill tons of oil into the Gulf and not care. I mean, it's like they've run commercials for a couple months saying, "Oh, we're going to clean it up."
Right.
Yeah.
And that's it. And now there's.
Well, they'll just wait for the next crisis.
Right.
Yeah.
We're talking about.
Thank God, Japan. Off us.
That's right. 7 reactors. Right. And Japan's waiting for the other next. But yeah, it's a constant thing of like not. Of like we become that. Everybody wants fame. I mean, look at these reality shows. I'm watching. There's like some new show called like Swamp Repo. I swear to God, Swamp Repo.
I'm actually scared that you know that.
Yeah, well, I watch this.
Watch this television 18 hours a day.
Yeah, I watch this show called Identification Discovery, which has got all the forensic shows on.
No, that's.
And so they
I'm
constantly,
hooked on that.
So they constantly have this like Swamp. I mean, literally, and it's like they're talking the whole time about how fat these people are in the show, and like they're and I'm like, this is what I mean. Who found these people, and who's gonna watch these guys?
Tons of us.
I mean.
All I gotta do is look at that guy and just think how much better I'm gonna feel about myself.
Like
which is a huge thing. I think that's
not me personally, but I meant that.
I think that's the
commentary.
and it's. I mean, how many women talk about Pretty Woman the movie Pretty Woman, like it's like they're like Capote-esque, you know, or like that's their.
Right, it's about a hooker.
Right, it's about a hooker. I mean, let's get it real. It's about a hooker, you know.
They're really attractive.
An
a very
escort.
a very attractive escort that doesn't kiss.
Right.
And because that would somehow mean there's a connection. I mean, literally, I've heard so many women say, "I want the fairy tale." I'm like, what are you, a hooker? I mean, like, and this is where.
Yeah.
But do you want to kiss a
On a
hooker?
metaphorical sense, yeah. I think that's really kind of where and we keep getting back to this, the move away from personal responsibilities.
Right.
Just not present. You know, you look at every almost situation or what was these schools where everyone's got to get a trophy or everyone's got to be, you know, get an award. I mean, I kind of enjoyed the days when I was a little bit younger, and, you know, it's okay to come in second. Third's pretty cool, too.
Yeah.
You know? And that's not really the case anymore.
No, I mean, you know, it's like, I mean, when I was a kid, and, you know, they want to take dodgeball out of schools a lot. I mean, I think a lot of these schools have taken dodgeball, you know, because some kids aren't that good. And I'm like, well, what about the kids that aren't good in school?
Right.
Thank God for dodgeball.
Right.
You know, like, thank God. Right. Like,
the universe's way of balancing everything
Right, that's
out.
exactly right. It's like they used to have shop in schools, you know, and they used to have all these things for kids that weren't exactly geared towards learning.
Yeah, but they were just making weapons and bombs.
It's called vocational school.
Right, but you know, it's okay. You're right. It's not like you're trying to say it's okay to come in fourth, but it is okay to come in.
But it's about being willing to try.
Right.
It's about making that effort. It's kind of like you were saying, the value of doing a good job.
Right.
You know, it doesn't have to be so. I mean, the whole nation's basically alcoholics. It's so all or nothing.
Right.
What happened to just, you know, that you're enough? You're enough.
Right.
You don't hear that anymore.
Well, because nobody is enough anymore. I mean, it's like, I mean, I don't, God forbid I ever meet them and I say something bad about them, but these Kardashian chicks should be euthanized.
They're very
I mean,
talented.
the damage that they have done to
That come from a
society.
Jew?
Yeah, the damage they have done to society is irreparable. And does that word fit?
Wow, it's a gold star night
Yeah.
for
No, see,
Judah.
you can't even
What's
blame the
irreparable,
Kardashians. I mean, you can't even blame the Kardashians.
No,
the
no,
fact is,
I will.
20 years ago, that wouldn't have been acceptable.
Right.
That's what's obscure your
Right,
commentator.
right,
Is that
right.
that's actually acceptable and actually
Right.
a way to
It's
achieve
valued.
success.
It is right. It's valuable.
That's what's scary.
Because you know, it's like they literally took the shortcut up the mountain.
Right.
You know, and it's like
Well, and it feeds into
everyone
so
wants
many
to.
things, like, you know, plastic surgery and body dysmorphic disorder.
the lap band right
and,
on the way here. We saw that with the CV for 1-800-GET-THIN.
Right.
Yeah, it's just we're surrounded by it.
But you're seeing all the long-term studies now from lap band.
No, what they've
Not
exploded.
too favorable.
Yeah.
Not too favorable.
People gain weight again.
Right.
and,
No
Well,
one
I mean,
wants-
well, again,
It's
it's like
high
looking
death
for.
rate,
It's,
too.
but again, it's kind of like we were talking about earlier, looking for some type of drug to cure alcoholism. You may cure opiate dependence, or you may cure, you know,
right,
maybe.
but you'll be sniffing glue.
Right, exactly. You're not curing the spiritual malady.
Do you know how many people say to me, "Oh, why don't you get LASIK surgery?" Right? And I know this might be a little different, but I'm like, why take the risk? I'm not willing to. You know, I'd rather be follically.
You know, that's a horrible example.
I'd rather be follically.
Plus, you know, the glasses cover up part of your face.
And my nose. And I'd rather be.
Make my nose look small.
Yeah, I'd rather be follically challenged than have to like get. You know, it's just a fear I have. I'm okay with having glasses.
Right.
I don't need to have
This
my
is a
eyes.
case where your like paranoia and fear actually is healthy. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I completely agree.
Maybe you two should talk more after the show.
As my follically impaired friend to my right, Earl, agrees.
I mean, I could see through the sun with these things.
Yeah.
But no one wants to work for their fame anymore.
Right.
You know, they just want, you know, Springsteen, you know, was in bars forever. Not to say you have to do it forever, but now American Idol, you can go unknown to bam. You're
Well, the other thing
headliner.
is how many people ever get to the point of Springsteen. For every Springsteen, there's got to be thousands that work just as hard that never got there.
Right.
And think about it like this: Springsteen's greatest album was a spawn of like a creation of, you know, being told by the studios this sucks.
Right.
You know, and like you're done. After what was it, Nebraska came out, and they were like,
Which is
what,
actually my favorite album.
well, they were like, "What is this?" And then he came out with Born to Run, which is considered one of the greatest
Right.
rock albums of all
Just because it
time.
made money.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's like there is. You're right. It's like American Idol. I mean, in comedians, they had The Last
Yeah,
Comic
the river
Standing.
before that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a great song. And you have Last Comic
And the
Standing.
Gong Show before that.
The Gong Show.
But at least the Gong Show is a parody.
Right.
Like Last Comic Standing, they really, you know, they show comedy in like 30-second chunks. So
Right.
anyone watching
Isn't that whole
this-
show
oh.
fixed too? Like,
Basically, I mean, most of the people already have managers and agents, so
Right.
they've kind of
they're
done
working
it
into the system.
under the ruse of, oh, this is an open micer from, you know,
Right.
Nebraska, and now he's But
But he's been doing it for 11 years.
Yeah. Hey, maybe anyone have the phone number of the cast?
You were surprised when I said this. My girlfriend was recently, my mythical girlfriend was recently on a game show that they cast. They cast the game show. Yeah. I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, I got called back for a game show. I was like, you got called back? Like, it was like literally like...
Right. Casting call.
Like a casting call. I was in shock.
Well, those shows put people in a position that they're not ready for. Like American Idol, if you win that, you have to headline a concert for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And you don't have 3 songs. You're just doing covers on American Idol. Who wants to hear you sing original
It was
stuff?
like, you ever see that great episode of The Family Guy where, like, Peter, they have a karaoke band, and then they go to jail and to prison to play in their the band, and they get on stage, and Quagmire's like, giggity, we have no songs. We don't know what to play.
That's reality TV right there.
We are running out of time.
We're running out of time. Next week, we do have Ant.
Ant will be in next week.
He's going to come and talk about his sobriety.
Yeah. And is the giggle. And Earl, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. You guys
Earl
are
Skakel,
awesome.
And you're performing anywhere that we can catch you?
And I'll be in Denver with Rob Schneider in 2 weeks, and LA shows all the time.
Cool. And where can we find your LA shows? Because I'd actually like to go and see you.
Just same thing every other comic. Facebook, Earl Skakel.
Earl Skakel.
Perfect.
And we didn't get into how you know his brother Andrew, but
we better not.
And we have Jeremy Stanton, owner and founder of Haven House, and you'll find him appearing at Haven House every day. And it is a fine facility. It really is a great place. Thank you so much for coming in tonight, and you were great.
And for more information, you can go to havenhousesoberliving.com.
Yes, and we'll put it on a link on our page at KLEANradio.com.
Absolutely.
And Andrew and I will be appearing all week, probably at the Klean Center as always, and where Andrew will be hitting me with a hockey stick. And now it's a great place. Come check out our website at KLEANradio.com, KLEANtreatmentcenter.com. Just give us a call, and you can find us on Facebook. And
we have ongoing discussions during the week too.
Yeah,
on
we
our
do.
Facebook.
We do have ongoing discussions, and please feel free to email your questions that you might have. God, I hate Marilyn Manson, man. What is this fascination you have with this dude? Andrew actually has a Marilyn Manson mask.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
He has death mask.
He has a Picasso and a Marilyn mask. Which one? Guess which one?
I actually identify with that.
Guess which one he has no problem with me going to Pawn Stars and selling. And we'll catch you next week at Klean Radio.
Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs? Call Klean Treatment Center at 888-601-6040 for a free drug test and consultation. A treatment advisor is available to help you administer the test and answer any questions you may have regarding treatment and more. We are here to help. Call us today at 888-601-6040 or find us online at KLEANtreatmentcenter.com for your free drug test and the start of a promising future.